Okay, good morning, and I hope there is no further need of further introduction as Father has introduced me to all of you. So there is no need of a further introduction from my part. And before going into the in-depth study of economics, let us start with the introduction. First of all, we have to define economics. That is the topic. I hope you can see the screen that I'm sharing, the PPT.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So let's start with with defining economics. Now, what is economics? What I understood from what Father said is that most of the students here sitting here are either studying economics or have started studying economics. Okay, so anyway, we have to first understand what the subject that we are going to study is. We have to start with the defining economics. Now, economic studies about the economic activities of human beings. Now, the activities of human beings can be classified into two. They are economic activities and non-economic activities. Now, how will you define economic activities and non-economic activities, or how can you differentiate between these two types of activities? Economic activities are those activities which involve money, whereas non-economic activities are those activities which do not involve money. Okay, so now with an example, this point can be made clear. A mother doing the household activities, cooking, washing, etc., and teaching her children at home. These activities does not involve money. Okay, so that is an non-economic activity. At the same time, when a maid is appointed at that home to do all these uh, works, like cooking food for the family members, looking after the small child in the family, washing, cleaning, etc. If these activities are performed by a maid who is appointed by the family, then it involves the aspect of money. Why? Because that needs the payment of what is that, money to the maid. So it made MAID. So it involves money. So these activities are economic activities. So economic activities are those activities which involve money, whereas non-economic activities are those activities which do not involve money. Okay, so this is the difference between economic activity and non-economic activity. I hope the example is clear to all of you, and the difference between economic activities and non-economic activities are also clear to you. So now economics is a branch of study which studies about the economic activities of human beings. From that, it is clear that uh, economics does not involve the study of non-economic activities. Now, the definition of economics as given by experts can be seen as economics is the study of how societies use scarce resources to produce valuable commodities and distribute them among different people. This is one definition given to economics. So what is economics? It is a study of how societies use scarce resources to produce valuable commodities and distribute them among different people. Now, from this definition, it is clear that the economic activities of an economy are like to produce and distribute and then to consume them. So what is economics? It is a study of how societies use scarce resources. We know that the resources are scarce. Resources means anything that helps you in producing another commodity. So that is known as resources. We can also say that resources can be money also. Okay. So, but we know that these resources are scarce. The natural resources are scarce. The human resources are not scarce, but the capital resources are scarce. So there are scarce resources, and the societies use these scarce resources and to produce valuable commodities. So the resources that are scarce are used by the society to produce commodities, valuable commodities, and distribute them among different people. Now, what are commodities? Commodities means anything which satisfies human wants. Okay, we all have wants. Wants means we have needs. So those things which have the power or which have the capacity to satisfy our wants are known as commodities. Okay, so that are commodities. So when we say commodities in economics, commodities doesn't mean goods only. It also includes it also includes services also, because services also satisfies our wants. For example, when we feel ill, we go to the doctor and we get the service of the doctor for that, and for that a particular want is satisfied, isn't it? When we have any litigation, we go and consult with a lawyer, so that lawyer gives us his service, and we are yes.
Presentation on the full screen ആക്കാവോ?
Presentation full screen അതെങ്ങനെ എനിക്കറിയില്ല ഇപ്പൊ.
Slide show.
അതെങ്ങനെ ചെയ്യണം എന്ന് പറയാൻ പറ്റുമോ?
F5 അടിച്ചാൽ മതി. F5.
ഏതാ?
F5.
F5 ആ?
അല്ല സാറേ, അതിന്റെ അടിയിൽ ഒരു പിക്ചർ ഉണ്ടേ, അതിനകത്തൊരു ബുക്കിന്റെ പടത്തിന്റെ അപ്പുറത്തൊരു പടം കണ്ടില്ലേ? കാണാമോ?
ഇതോ?
അതന്നെ അതന്നെ, അത് ക്ലിക്ക് ചെയ്തേ.
സ്ലൈഡ് ഷോ.
അത് ക്ലിക്ക് ചെയ്യേ.
ഓക്കെ ഓക്കെ, ഇപ്പൊ ക്ലിയർ ആണോ?
ഈ നെക്സ്റ്റ് കൊടുക്കുകയോ ടാബ് കൊടുക്കുകയോ ചെയ്ത് കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ അടുത്ത പോകും.
ഓക്കെ ഓക്കെ ഓക്കെ, അപ്പൊ ടാബ് കൊടുത്തിട്ടുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ അടുത്ത സ്ലൈഡിലേക്ക് പോകും അല്ലേ? ഓക്കെ ഓക്കെ,
ലെഫ്റ്റ് ആരോ കൊടുത്താൽ വീണ്ടും പഴയതിലേക്ക് വരാനും പറ്റുമേ.
ഓക്കെ ഓക്കെ ഓക്കെ, അപ്പൊ ഞാൻ ഒന്ന് ചെക്ക് ചെയ്തതാണത്. So economics is the study of how societies use scarce resources to produce valuable commodities and distribute them among different people. We know that the resources are scarce, and these scarce resources have to be used very carefully. Why? Because the resources are scarce, and these scarce resources are used to produce valuable commodities. Now, what are commodities? Anything which satisfies human wants are known as commodities. So it does not, in economics, commodities include not only goods, but also includes services also, because services also have the the capacity to satisfy our wants. And these produced goods, these produced commodities are distributed among the different people. So economics studies about these matters: how the society uses the scarce resources, how with the help of these scarce resources valuable commodities are produced, and how these produced goods are distributed among the people in the society. And another definition given to economics is: economic studies how individuals, firms, governments, and other organizations within our society make choices, and how these choices determine a society's use of its resources. So what this is a little bit complicated definition. Economic studies how individuals, firms, governments, and other organizations with our society make choices, and how these choices determine a society's use of its resources. See, here also we say that the resources are scarce, and it is on the basis of the choice of the society that the resources are used, because the since the resources are scarce, we do not have plenty of resources to use it as we like. Okay, we have to be very careful while using the scarce resources, since the resources are scarce. Okay, so the resources are used only on the basis of the choice of the society. So in economics, we study how the individuals, the firms, the government, and the other organization of a society make choice, and this choice determine the use of the resources. That means this choice determine production. It is on the basis of the choices of the society that productive activities are taken by the society. Clear? Is it clear? The definition of economics and the differentiation between economic activities and non-economic activities. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. Shall we move to the second slide? This is the, here we will discuss about the two branches of economics actually. Okay, micro and macroeconomics. uh, uh, Usually we use the term microeconomics and macroeconomics, and it is not actually, it is not the it is not microeconomics and macroeconomics. It is actually microeconomic analysis and macroeconomic analysis. That is the real term that we should use, microeconomic analysis and macroeconomic analysis. But for the sake of simplicity, we use the terms microeconomics and macroeconomics. Now, these two branches, these two are the main important branches of economics. Actually, before the 1930s, there was only one branch of economics, and which is the microeconomics. Actually, that these terms were not there during that time. During before 1930s, economics was studied on the basis of classical approach. There were several classical economists who discussed about the classical approach, who approached economics in a classical style, and or who approached economics in a micro way. It is after the Great Depression of the 1930s that the subject matter of economics got divided into two main branches like microeconomics and macroeconomics. Now, what is the Great Depression of 1930s, or why did the discipline of economics, or the branch of study of economics, got divided into two branches, namely microeconomics and macroeconomics? It was after the Great Depression of 1930s that economics got divided into microeconomics and macroeconomics. I just told you. Uh, it was a depression, or economic depression actually. It was a Great Depression or economic depression that was faced by almost all the countries of the world. Okay. Actually, it all started in the year 1932, and it lasted for a longer period, because the all the economy of the world were not so developed as we see it today. So the Great Depression, the economic depression, showed that the approach to solve the economic problems in a micro way could not solve these problems. Okay. Now, when we go back in search of the reason for the Great Depression of the 1930s, we see that the classical approach of the microeconomics was an utter failure, or this approach was not able to solve the problem of the Great Depression. Okay. It was John Maynard Keynes who studied about the Great Depression in the 1930s, which occurred in the 1930s, and he saw that the depression occurred, the economic depression occurred in an industry or in a firm in America. How? He explained that mm, during a certain period, there was overproduction in the industry. What is overproduction? The produced goods were not sold during that period. Okay, the goods produced by the industry were not sold during that period itself. So there was overproduction. There was no need of production since the produced goods were not sold off fully. There was some goods left unsold, and the firm or the industry decided to reduce production in the next period or in the next year. So what happened when the firm or the industry decided to reduce the production of the commodities in the next year? What happened, many of the people were thrown out of employment from that industry. It occurred in America. Okay. So this unemployment, this many people were unemployed, and because of that unemployment, they lost their income. Because of less income, the what is that the demand for the commodities by these people, or by these unemployed people, came down. And due to reduced demand for goods and services, the production of other industries also came down. Okay. So this depression in an industry, which occurred in an industry, spread to other industries also, like cancer. And this American economy was affected by this depression. And as we say that whenever America catches cold, India sneezes. There's a saying like that. Whenever America catches cold, India sneezes. America ജലദോഷം പിടിച്ചിട്ടുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ ഇന്ത്യ തുമ്മും. Why? Because America and American economy and Indian economy are related. Not only American economy and Indian economy, almost all, every economies of the world are interrelated through foreign trade. So when the American economy faced a depression, economic depression during this period, they reduced the import of goods to America from other countries. Reduction of imports by America means reduction of exports from India. Okay, so when America reduced the import of goods from India, what happened? India's export also got reduced. Okay, so India's export got reduced. That means the India could not gain much from foreign trade. Okay, so Indian economy also started declining. Okay, so that is how the this depression spread to all over, spread all over the world, to all other economies of the world. So we can say that it spread like a cancer from in the from one of the American industries. It spread to the whole world like cancer. So John Maynard Keynes saw that the root cause for this depression was overproduction, and which was against the theory of J.B. Say, a classical economist, who said that demand creates its own demand. Sorry, demand creates its own supply. Okay, demand creates its own market, or demand creates its own supply. That is what J.B. Say said. And that is that theory is known as Say's law of market. So Say's law of market says that demand creates its own supply. Whatever you produce, you can sell it in the open market. Okay, so there is no chance of overproduction in an economy. Whatever you produce, it can be sold out in the market. Okay, sorry, I made a mistake. It is not demand creates its own supply. It is the other way. Supply creates its own demand. Whatever you produce and supply in the market, it will be automatically demanded by the people. So this overproduction showed that, proved that this theory went wrong. The JB says law of market went wrong, because there was overproduction, and the root cause of this Great Depression was the overproduction in an industry. Okay, so it clearly showed that the what is that Say's law of market was wrong, because supply could not create its own demand. Supply was not able to create its own demand. So John Maynard Keynes uh, saw that, or thought that the approach to solve the problem was wrong. Okay, whatever problems you have in the micro level, or in the tiny level, or in the individual or firm level, we can use an approach. But when it comes to an aggregate level, or to the level of an economy as a whole, the same approach cannot be applied successfully. So there should be another approach. Okay, so in 1936, John Maynard Keynes introduced, or published a book called The General Theory of Employment, Interest and Money. And through this work, John Maynard Keynes opened up a new branch called macroeconomics. And that is why John Maynard Keynes is considered to be the father of macroeconomics. Okay. And it is through this publication of General Theory of Employment, Interest and Money that J.M. Keynes suggested a new approach to the solution of the problem of Great Depression, and which affected the whole world. So micro means tiny level, and macro means aggregate level or large level. So simply put, macro is about the forest and micro is about the trees. So when we study about each and every tree singly, it is micro. And when we study about the whole forest as a whole, it is macroeconomics. So this is the difference between microeconomics and macroeconomics. Micro approach is a tiny level approach. whereas macro approach is an aggregate level of approach. Clear? Okay. Now, micro and macro are independent, though they seem different. We have seen that micro is about the trees and macro is about the forest, or we can otherwise say that micro approach is from the worm's eye view, WORM, worm's eye view, whereas macro approach is on the basis of bird's eye view. Okay, birds, BIRDS. അതായത് മൈക്രോ എക്കണോമിക്സ് ഒരു പുഴുവിന്റെ കണ്ണിൽ കൂടെ കാര്യങ്ങൾ കാണുന്നു, മാക്രോ എക്കണോമിക്സ് ഒരു പക്ഷിയുടെ കണ്ണിൽ കൂടെ കാര്യങ്ങൾ കാണുന്നു. വാട്ട് ഇസ് ദ ഡിഫറൻസ്? പുഴുവിന്റെ കണ്ണിൽ കൂടെ കാണുന്നു എന്ന് പറയുമ്പോൾ the worm can see only a small area around it, whereas a bird which is flying over the sky can see a vast area, isn't it? So that is the difference between micro and macro. So they though there is difference between these two approaches are interdependent. Now, what is the interdependence of micro and macro? It is given within the brackets. A rise in inflation, that is macro effect, will cause a rise in the cost of raw materials, leading to a rise in prices which consumers will pay. That is micro effect. So a macro effect will have or will lead to a micro effect also. A rise in inflation. Now, what is inflation? Can any one of you say what is inflation?
Price level.
Yes.
Increasing the general price level.
Increase in the general price level. Okay, so that is what we all say what inflation means. Actually, an increase in the general price level is not inflation. We cannot define inflation as a general or rise in the general price level. A rise in the general price level is a cause of inflation. Okay, inflation actually refers to too much money in circulation or too much money in money supply in the circulation. Okay, what happens then? When there is too much money in circulation, all the people in the economy will have more money with them. Okay, when people get more money with them, what happens? The demand for goods will increase. But normally what happens is the demand increases faster than supply, and an increase in supply cannot easily match up with the increase in demand. Okay, this leads to a rise in price. So actually, rise in price is the effect of inflation, and inflation does not mean a general rise in price level. Inflation actually means a rise in the supply of money. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so what you have fed in your mind, please delete it and rewrite it as this. Okay, inflation means a rise in the supply of money, which causes a rise in the price level. So inflation, an increase in inflation is a macro effect, and it will cause a rise in the cost of raw materials, because when there is inflation, okay, it leads to a rise in the price level, and the price of raw materials also increases. The price of raw materials increases means then the cost of raw materials will increase, and this leads to an increase in the price of the produced goods. Okay, whenever there is an increase in the cost of raw materials, what happens? The producer will have to spend more money to produce the goods, and the producer will fix a high price for the commodities that they produce, and the price that the consumer will have to pay will also be high. Okay, just as we have discussed here, uh, inflation leads to a general price level. So inflation is macro effect, and an increase in the price level is micro effect. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Any doubts? Any doubts enough? Any of you?
No, sir.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Now we'll go to the next topic, econometrics. Now, what is econometrics? Econometrics is another branch of economics other than micro and macro. This field seeks to apply statistical and mathematical methods to economic analysis. Okay, the major advances made in econometrics have helped a lot in making the sophisticated analysis of micro and macro economics. Now, econometrics is comparatively a new branch of study which uses mathematical and statistical analysis or mathematical and statistical tools for making economic analysis. Okay, so uh, what is the effect of using mathematical and statistical tools or applying mathematical and statistical tools in economic analysis? It is actually econometrics is a more sophisticated and complicated analysis of micro and macro analysis. Actually, this branch of economics, this branch means this econometrics. Econometrics is a new, comparatively new branch of economics, and this branch of economics helps the economists to solve the economic problems in a more sophisticated manner. Okay, uh, because economics is a social science, and we are not able to formulate or to make a model for social sciences, just like the what is it, the models that we have seen when we study in the schools for biology, or in the biology lab. You can see the model of the human skeleton, the model of the eye or ear, etc. Such models cannot be made in economics, being a social science. So, but in order to understand the complexity, or in order to understand the complex features of economics, we have to make a model. And in economics, we make the model only on the basis of some equations, mathematical equations and inequalities. Okay, one such important model is linear programming. Okay, I don't know. I think you need not study that linear programming. Just understand that linear programming is an statistical tool or mathematical tool used to make economic analysis. So econometrics is a branch of study which uses or which what is that, blends both all the three: economics, statistics and mathematics together. So this is a mixture of three different disciplines like mathematics, statistics and economics, brought together or blended together to form a new branch of study which is known as econometrics. And the introduction of econometrics has made possible the analysis of sophisticated micro and macro problems. Clear?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, okay, fine. Now we'll discuss about what is an economy. Economy is economics in action. It is popularly used in case of countries. For example, we say that Indian economy, US economy, etc. While the principles and theories of economics remain the same, economies of countries show diversities given the socio-economic diversities the countries have. So what is economy? Economy means economics in action, and which is related to the name of the country. Okay. We use Indian economy, American economy, Japanese economy, British economy, etc. So the it is popularly used with the name of the countries only. The principles and theories of economics are the same, universal. It is universally applicable, but uh, every country have its own problems, and they have their own ways to solve these problems. Okay, so since there are diversities, or there are differences between the problems that they face, every economy will have their own method of solving these problems, and the approach also will be different. So though the principles and theories of economics are the same and universal throughout the world, economies shows diversity. Why? Because there are social, economic diversities or differences in uh, every country also. And so that is what is we have to say about the economy. I hope it is clear. Economy is economics in action, and economy differs from country to country because of the differences in the socio-economic diversities of every country. That is what we have discussed here. Clear? Is
Yes.
that clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. Now, the next topic is sectors and types of economies. So in the previous slide, we have seen what an economy is. Economy is economics in action, and the economies of countries differ from country to country because of the diversities in socio-economic activities of the country. Okay, but every economy or every country will have the following types of economies. What are the different sectors, or what are the different types of economies that every country have? Economic activities and in economy are broadly divided into three main sectors, and by their dominance, economy get their names. Okay, so there are three different sectors. The economic activities of an economy can be broadly classified into three different sectors. And in every country, in each country, one of these three sectors will be dominating. There are three sectors: the primary sector, the secondary sector, and the tertiary sector. Okay, these are the three sectors of an economy. This classification of these sectors are based on the are made on the basis of the economic activities of an economy, and on the basis of these sectors, the economy gets that name. Okay, that means of the three sectors, one of the three sectors will be dominating in an economy. So which sector is dominating, on the basis of that, that economy gets the name. We'll discuss it. First one is primary sector. It includes all economic activities which are related to nature, exploring natural resources. When agriculture, that is one of the subsectors of primary sector, contribute at least half of the national income and livelihood in a country, it is called an agrarian economy. Okay, so what is primary sector? When we say primary sector, most of us have an we believe that primary sector is related to agriculture. Okay, but primary sector is related not only to agriculture. Any activity which is related to nature comes under primary sector. Okay, it can be agriculture, it can be fishing or pisciculture, it can be logging. Logging means timber trade. It can be mining, it can be quarrying. Any such activities which tries to explore natural resources includes in the primary sector. Now, among these, almost about 75 to 80% of the world's population depend on agriculture mainly for the what is that, for their livelihood. And when in an economy, the agriculture contributes more than half of the national income and livelihood of the economy. Such an economy is known as agrarian economy. So agriculture, there is primary sector has several subsectors, just as I have said now. But among these, the main subsector is agriculture. So when this subsector agriculture, when this subsector is dominating in an economy, we call that economy as an agrarian economy. Now, the second sector is secondary sector. It is also known as industrial sector. It includes all those activities under which the raw materials extracted out of the primary sector are processed. When secondary sector brings in minimum half of the national income and employment in a country, it is called an industrial economy. Okay, so what is secondary sector? Secondary sector relates to all the industrial activities of the industrial sector, all the industrial activities. That means when the raw materials which are extracted from the out of the primary sector. Okay, primary sector, we have seen what is primary sector. It is a sector which is related to exploring of or exploration of natural resources, and the natural resources which are explored through the economic activities in the primary sector. These what is that, natural resources are processed in another sector. Okay, and this sector is known as secondary sector, and the secondary sector is also known as industrial sector. Okay, see, an example will make it clear. Sugar industry. It is one. It is a what is that? Subsector of the secondary sector. Okay, sugar industry is a subsector of the secondary sector. And where does the sugar industry get its raw materials? Or another, I'll ask you another question. What is the raw material of sugar industry? What is the raw material of sugar industry?
Sugarcane.
Sugarcane. Where does the sugar industry get sugarcane from?
Farmers.
Primary sector.
From the
Farmers.
primary sector. Okay, from the primary sector. Okay, this is just an example. So any industry which we see in the secondary sector has to depend on primary sector for the raw materials. Iron and steel industry. Iron and steel industry, the what is that? The raw material of iron and steel industry is iron ore, and they also need coal to melt iron ore. And iron ore and coal are mined from the earth, and it is from the primary sector that iron and steel industry gets its raw materials. Okay, so any activity which processes the raw materials which is extracted from the primary sector is known as secondary sector. Okay, and when in a country, when in an economy, the secondary sector brings more of contributes more of the more to the national income and employment of the country. Such a economy is known as industrial economy. So first sector is primary sector, and first type of economy is agrarian economy. So that is what we are studying here: sectors and types of economies. The first sector is primary sector, and the when agriculture, or one of the most important subsectors of the primary sector, dominates in an economy, that economy is known as agrarian economy. Second sector is secondary sector, where all the industrial activities are carried out, converting or processing the raw materials extracted from the natural what is that, primary sector. And when the secondary sector dominates that economy, it is called an industrial economy. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Now there are tertiary sector also. Tertiary sector includes all the services rendered like education, healthcare, banking, communication, trade, insurance, etc. come under this sector. When this sector contributes a minimum half of the national income and livelihood in a country, it is called a service economy. Okay, so these are the three different sectors of an economy, and on the basis of the dominance of these three sectors, there are different names given to the economy also. The primary sector, where all the extraction of natural resources are done, and when agriculture is dominating in that economy, it is known as agrarian economy. Secondly, there is the secondary sector, where all the processing of the raw materials extracted from the primary sector are done through industries, and because of that, this is also known as industrial sector. And an economy where the secondary sector is dominating is known as industrial economy. And there is a tertiary sector also, where the services of different kinds are dominating, or services of different kinds are carried on in the tertiary sector. And when in an economy the tertiary sector is dominating, such an economy is known as the services economy. Clear? So these three are the different sectors and different types of economies: the primary sector and the agrarian economy, the secondary sector and the industrial economy, the tertiary sector and the services economy.
Yes, sir.
Okay, no doubts. Now, economists later added two more sectors of the economy, which are considered to be the subsectors of the tertiary sector. They are quaternary sector and the quinary sector. Okay. So later on, traditionally, there were only three sectors: the primary sector, the secondary sector, and the tertiary sector. And of late, economists have added two more sectors to the tertiary sector. Actually, these two sectors are considered to be a subsector of tertiary sector, and they are the quaternary sector and the quinary sector. Now let us discuss what are the quaternary sector and quinary sector. quaternary sector, or known also as knowledge sector. The activities related to education, research and development, etc., come under this. This sector plays an important role in defining the quality of human resources of an economy. Okay, all the activities related to education, research and development, etc., comes under quaternary sector, and this is also known as knowledge sector. Okay, these are services, education, research and development, etc. are services, and that is why we consider quaternary sector as a subsector of the tertiary sector. Okay, and this sector is very important in defining the quality of human resources in an economy. So when the persons of an economy get good education, and when there is a development in what is that, the research and development activities, or when there is an improvement in the research and development activities of a country, again then also there is an improvement in the quality of human beings in an economy. So the quaternary sector tries to improve the quality of human resources in an economy. Okay, and now coming to the quinary sector, all activities where top decisions are made fall under this sector. The highest level of decision makers in the government and the sector, private corporate sector falls under this category. The people involved in this sector is very low in number and are regarded as the brain behind the socio-economic performance of an economy. Here also, when we understand what comprises of the quinary sector, we see that this also includes the services. Okay, so all the key decisions are taken by the top level. We know that the in every firm, in every organization, all the decisions, all the strategic decisions are taken by the top level managers. Okay, so the top decisions are taken by the top level managers, and that falls under the quinary sector. The not only in the private organizations, even in the government sector also, there are several what is that, decisions to be taken. Strategic decisions are to be taken. Strategic means important or basic decisions are to be taken, and these decisions are taken by the decision makers. Okay, in simple terms we call them the managers. Okay, so the decision makers are the managers. They manage the whole organization, they manage the whole firm, etc. And these managers are the what is that, they are the real decision makers. And the decision making can be also on the what is that, top level also. Okay, we can make decision at the lowest level. Now what is decision? Decision means selecting the most suitable alternative from among a number of alternatives. We have several alternatives before us, and when we select one from them, it is known as decision. So decision making can be taken from the top, by the top level management, or even at the bottom level also. Okay, so but the strategic decisions are always taken by the top level management, not by the bottom persons. Okay, so the strategic decisions are taken by the top level managers, and the top level management or the top level decision makers are very low in number, and they are regarded as the brain behind the socio-economic performance of an economy. So they are the drivers of the economy. Okay, why do we call them the drivers of the economy? Because it is their brain that drives the economy forward. Okay, so they are the brain behind the socio-economic performance of the economy, and this activities of strategic decision making comes under the quinary sector. So these are the different sectors of an economy: primary sector, secondary sector, tertiary sector, and two more subsectors of the tertiary sector are included, and they are the quaternary sector and the quinary sector. I hope it is clear so far.
Yes, sir.
Yes, okay. No, any doubts?
No, sir.
No, okay. Just 2 minutes. Let me take some water. Okay. Okay, stages of growth. W. Rostow, 1960, explained the 5 stages of growth of an economy through the 3 sectors: agriculture, industry, and services. However, countries like India, Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand, and Vietnam showed exception to Rostow's theory. These countries moved from agrarian economy to service economy without much expansion in the industrial sector. Okay, this is just to understand how an economy grows or how an economy develops. In 1960, W. Rostow explained the 5 stages of growth of an economy through the 3 sectors: agriculture, industry, and services. That is, an economy in the initial stages will be an agrarian economy, okay, where agriculture is the dominant activity of the people. And this agrarian economy slowly picks up, slowly develops, and becomes an industrial economy. And from there, it again picks up and develops and becomes a service economy, or the tertiary sector will be dominating there. Okay, so this there are 5 stages which is explained through the development of these 3 sectors. And but one thing we have to keep in mind is that though Rostow has said that the economy moves from the agricultural sector to the industrial sector, then to the services sector, there are some countries which showed an exception to this rule. Okay, India, Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand, and Vietnam. These countries passed from agrarian economy, started from agrarian economy, and went directly to the services economy, not touching the industrial sector. Okay, without any much expansion in the industrial sector, these countries were able to jump to the development of the services sector. So they were able to move from agriculture sector to services sector without expansion, without the expansion of what is that industrial sector. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Economic systems. I hope you all know the term economic systems. There are different types of economic systems, and what are the economic systems? We will discuss about that. Human life depends on consumption of certain goods which need to be produced and distributed. For production to take place, there arises the need of making investment. But who will invest and why? To solve these questions evolved in different economic systems or the ways of organizing an economy. To solve these questions evolved the different economic systems or the ways, okay, oh, sorry, or the ways of organizing an economy. So we have discussed earlier about the different economic activities. And human life depends upon consumption of goods and services. We all consume goods and services to satisfy our wants. Okay, and this goods, the consumption of goods and services, these goods and services are known as commodities. So we all consume goods and services to satisfy our wants. And these goods and services which satisfy human wants have to be produced, and not only produced, it has to be distributed among the people also. So these are the 3 economic activities involved in an economy: consumption, production, and distribution, or production, distribution, and consumption. Goods have to be produced, they have to be distributed, and they have to be consumed also. Okay, not only goods, services also have to be produced or rendered. It has to be distributed, and it has to be consumed also. Uh, we can we can okay. Economic systems. Okay, so whenever a good or service is produced or rendered, that good or service which is produced or rendered has to be distributed, and it has to be consumed also. You can say that, you can see that I am rendering my service here. Okay, I am rendering my service here, or I am producing and rendering the service. Okay, and this service is distributed among you students, and this service which is distributed among you are consumed by you at the time of production or rendering of the service. So that is the difference between rendering or goods and services. Goods, the production of goods can be produced goods can be stored and consumed later on, but produced or rendered services cannot be stored and consumed later on. It has to be consumed on the spot itself. So human life depends upon consumption of goods and services which satisfies human wants. They have to be produced. These goods and services have to be produced, and these produced goods and services have to be distributed also. Now, for production to take place, there arises the need of making investment. Only through investment we can produce goods and services. Now, who is to invest? Who will invest? And why does that person or that organization invest? To solve these economies of who will invest and why they should invest, there evolved different economic systems, and these different economic systems are the ways of organizing an economy. And based on this, there are three different types of economic systems, and they are discussed below. The first one is market economy. Is this clear? The
Yes,
terms
sir.
given in the slide? Okay. We'll go to the first type of economic system, that is market economy. Its origin can be traced back to the work of Adam Smith. His main ideas are: it is the self-interest which motivates firms or individuals to do economic activities. This motivating factor is called as invisible hand by Adam Smith. The questions like who will invest and why will get solved by the invisible hand. Second point, to attain higher prosperity, there should be increasing division of labor, which leads to specialization. Third, invisible hand can operate properly only if there is a suitable environment determined by the forces of demand and supply, called the market forces, is present. The problems of what to produce, how much to produce, and what price to sell, etc., are solved by these market forces. Such an fourth point, such an economic system needs to be regulated by competition prevailing in the market. Fifth, for efficient operation of the economic activities, government should follow a policy of laissez-faire, which generally means non-interference by the government in economic matters. It means that government will not produce goods or services, no economic regulations, no taxes imposed, no subsidies granted, etc. These ideas of Adam Smith are the drivers of two major economic systems, capitalism and free market economy. Though they are based on the same economic environments, they are different in the following aspects. Okay, we'll start from the beginning. Market economy. Actually, this idea of market economy was developed by Adam Smith, and the main ideas put forward by Adam Smith while defining market economy are: it is the self-interest which motivates firms or individuals to do economic activities. This motivating factor is called the invisible hand by Adam Smith. The question like who will invest and why will get solved by the invisible hand. It is a self-interest. What is self-interest? Self-interest means profit motive. Okay, so the profit motive of the firms or individuals will motivate or will make them involved in economic activities, will make them means the firms or the individuals. So it is the self-interest, or it is the what is that profit motive, which makes a firm or an individual to do or to involve in economic activities. And this motivating factor is called as invisible hand by Adam Smith. And the questions like who will invest and why will they invest, etc., get solved by this invisible hand. Okay, so who will invest and why should they invest, etc., are solved by the invisible hand. And this invisible hand, what is this invisible hand? The motivating force, that is the profit motive. Okay, so the profit motive tries to find answers to the question who will invest. A person who is more profit oriented will make investment. And why does he make investment? To make profit also. Okay, so it is the invisible hand which determines all this or solves all these questions. To attain higher prosperity, there should be increasing division of labor, which leads to specialization. And again, the concept of division of labor was introduced by Adam Smith. Now, what is division of labor? The whole process of manufacturing should be divided into sub-processes, and each sub-process should be given to or entrusted to one person. And because of that, that person will become an expert in doing that job, which increases his specialization and expertise. And because of that, there will be an increase in the production also. Uh, there's a story behind this introduction of or suggestion of division of labor by Adam Smith. Okay. Okay. The story is like this. Okay. Okay. To attain higher prosperity, there should be increasing division of labor, which leads to specialization. Okay, so it was Adam Smith who suggested the introduction of division of labor, and there's a story behind this introduction of division of labor by Adam Smith, and the story goes like this: when Adam Smith once visited a pin manufacturing firm. Okay, so all the activities involved, all the sub processes involved in the production of the uh, muttu suji. Okay, so all the activities involved in the manufacturing of pin was done by a single person. That is spreading a sheet, cutting the sheet into thin pieces, and what is that? Making tip of the pin, ഇതിന്റെ മുട്ടുസൂചിയുടെ മുല ഉണ്ടാക്കുന്നത്, അതുപോലെ തന്നെ മുട്ടുസൂചിയുടെ മുകളിലുള്ള മുട്ടുണ്ടാക്കുന്നത്. All these activities are done by one single person. And what Adam Smith noted is that when a person does all these activities, all the different sub processes are, when all the sub processes are done by one single person, a person could produce only, on an average, only 100 pins per day. Okay, so he suggested dividing the processes, dividing the sub processes among different persons. One person should spread the sheet, one person should cut the sheet, ഒരാളത് ഷീറ്റ് എന്താ പറയുക അടിച്ച് പരത്തണം, ഒരാൾ ഷീറ്റ് മുറിക്കണം, ഒരാൾ അതിന് സൂചിക്ക് മുന ഉണ്ടാക്കണം, ഒരാൾ സൂചിക്ക് മുട്ടുസൂചിക്ക് മുട്ടുണ്ടാക്കണം. അങ്ങനെയുള്ള ആക്ടിവിറ്റീസ് എല്ലാം divided among different persons. Okay, so when such a suggestion was accepted by the firms or by the people, the production of pins increased tremendously, where on an average only 100 pins were produced before the introduction of division of labor. Now, after the introduction of division of labor, the pin manufacturer or the firm could produce on an average thousands of pins per day. So it shows that with the introduction of division of labor, what happens? There increases the dexterity. Dexterity means skill. Kaitharakam ennu parayum. Okay, so when what is that? Division of labor is introduced, it increases the dexterity of the people. It improves the specialization of the people, and through that production also can be increased, and through that prosperity also can be attained. And invisible hand can operate properly only if there is a suitable environment determined by the forces of demand and supply, known as the market forces. So these the problems of what to produce, how to produce, and what to produce, what price to sell, etc., are solved by these market forces. Again, Adam Smith suggests that there should be a suitable market forces of demand and supply. The market forces of it is the market forces of demand and supply which provides a suitable environment for the invisible hand to operate. Okay, the problems of what to produce, how much to produce, and what price to sell, all these questions are solved by this market forces of demand and supply. And this market forces of demand supply helps the invisible hand to operate properly. Clear? Are these 3 points clear to you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Such an economic system needs to be regulated by competition prevailing in the market. Okay, so there are different persons who are motivated by profit. Okay, and these persons who are more motivated by profit will go for producing more and more goods or for investing. Okay, so the who will invest is motivate is answered by the question who which person is interested in making profit. Okay, and suppose there are several persons who are motivated by profit, motivated by making profit, there will be a competition among them, isn't it? There will be a competition among the persons who are motivated by making profit, because uh, Mr. A, Mr. B, Mr. C, Mr. D, Mr. F, G, H, etc. All these persons want to make profit, and all these persons are willing to make investments also. What happens? They will compete with one another. And this economic system, this market economic system is regulated by competition prevailing in the market. These firms together, or these agents who are involved in the economic activities, they compete with one another. For efficient operation of economic activities, government should follow a policy of laissez-faire. It is pronounced as laissez-faire. And because of this, market economy is also known as laissez-faire economy. Now, what is laissez-faire policy? It is suggested that what is that? The government should follow a laissez-faire policy. Now, what is laissez-faire policy? Government should follow a policy of laissez-faire means the government should not interfere in economic activities. There should be a non-interference by the government in economic activities. The government will not involve in determining the prices of the goods. Okay, the government will not involve in the production of goods and services. The government will not interfere in economic regulations. The government will not impose any tax. The government will not give any subsidies, etc. Okay, it is the market forces of demand and supply which fixes the price in the open economy or in the market economy, and there will be no regulation by the government also. So such non-interference or non-regulation from the part of the government is known as laissez-faire. So the government should follow a policy of laissez-faire. These ideas of Adam Smith are the drivers of two major economic systems, capitalism and free market economy. Though they are based on the same economic environments, they are different in the following aspects. So this is the base of market economy, and we can say that market economy is somewhat the same as capitalism also, but there are some differences between these two also. There are some differences between capitalism and free market economy. Okay, so these are the features of market economy. I hope you have understood the 5 features of market economy as suggested by Adam Smith, the ideas behind the market economy. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, what is the difference between capitalism and market economy? In the earlier slide, we have seen that the ideas of Adam Smith, these 5 ideas of Adam Smith we have discussed so far, has contributed to the development of two major economic systems, namely capitalism and socialism. Capitalism and free market economy. And these two economic systems, capitalism and free market economy, are based on the same economic environments. Okay, but these have some certain differences also. Now, what are the differences? While capitalism is focused on creation of wealth and ownership of productive assets, free market economy is focused on exchange of wealth. So that is one aspect of difference between capitalism and market economy or free market economy. Under capitalism, we are focused on the creation of wealth and ownership of productive assets. Okay, capitalist means the persons who own capital, or in Malayalam we say mudalali. Okay, so what is the main driving force of a mudalali or a capitalist? They focus on the creation of wealth, and they also try to own the productive assets, and through that they try to make profit. Okay, so that is the main focus area of capitalism. Whereas in free market economy, they focus on the exchange of wealth from one person to another. Okay, so compared to capitalism, the competitiveness is less. We cannot say that there is no competition. There is competition, but competitiveness is less in free market economy compared to capitalism. Under capitalism, each and every person will try to make more and more wealth and to own productive assets, and through that they have tried to become more wealthier. Okay, but under free market economy, they focus on the exchange of wealth. That is, exchange of wealth here means the capitalists or the industrialists produce goods, and these goods are exchanged to the consumers to satisfy them. Now, second difference is that in a capitalist system, there might be some government regulation, but private owner can have monopoly on the market and thus prevent competition. However, a free market economy is solely based on market force of demand and supply, and there is little or no government regulation. In capitalist system, there might be some government regulation, but private owner can have monopoly on the market and thus prevent competition. So in a capitalist system, there, though we have discussed in the last previous slide that the capitalist idea is based on the laissez-faire policy of the government. That means non-interference of the government. Yet in capitalist system, there might be some government regulation, and private owner can have monopoly in the market and this prevent competition also. Okay, so there will be government regulation, some sort of government regulation will be there, and there will also be what is that, private owners who can have a monopoly on the market and prevent competition in the market also. However, a free market economy is solely based on market force of demand and supply, and there is little or no government regulation. So, whereas in capitalist system there is government regulation, but in the free market economy there is no government regulation. Okay,